Hey guys, welcome to another 31 Horror Toys in 31 Days review. Today I'm going to be reviewing the NECA Hicks action figure that came from the Hicks and Hudson 2-pack. Now this figure is absolutely amazing. He is honestly my favorite NECA action figure. And that's pretty much all that needs to be said right there. And also, Aliens is my favorite movie, so I'm a bit biased in that department. Alright, so let me set this guy aside. We'll take a look at the figure. We're going to start with the accessories, and he does come with a lot. This is basically, what they did is they gave us a 2-pack of what would normally be the Ultimate figures from, like, the Ultimate NECA figure line, you know. They were doing that for a while. I don't know. I think they're still making Ultimate figures. It's just, NECA is really weird at releasing figures. They like put out 5 amazing figures at once, and then you'll go 4 months with nothing, and then suddenly a big burst of more awesome figures, and then nothing, or except for like 1 or 2 things here and there. It's just so random sometimes. And this is one of those good random things. I honestly think that this figure didn't really need to be reproduced, because they did a great job the first time. But I feel like the second time they did a extremely decent job. Honestly, it just, I have no real complaints. There are some slight complaints I'll have through the review once we get into some details, but this figure's just all around solid. So with the accessories, we're going to start with some of the basics. So first off, we're going to start with his back piece here, which is the flashlight. I'm not sure what else it's supposed to do. I think it's just a flashlight that hangs on their shoulder. So nowadays we have all these things where a flashlight can just be a tiny thing and it shoots off a bright light. Back then they needed a whole battery pack and stuff. It's just weird how things like that work. But I like the look of this. I never quite understood why it has a handle on it. I guess the idea is you could hold it and then move the flashlight around. Not quite sure. But it looks nice. It's very well sculpted. The paint's all, I guess, decent. Let me see if I can get the focus on the item itself. And that's got the white part up there for the light. You can see the little rivets on the side. It's a nice piece. You could even put that handle in his hand if you felt any reason to do that. I'm not sure why you would, but that pegs into his back here. They have this little port that's through the armor and into his back. And it sits there. And then this wire is supposed to go into one of these holes down here. That's not going to work, so I just leave it like that. Next accessory, I'm going to have his back piece here, which stores his shotgun. Let me take it off. It looks fairly nice on him. It's just kind of hard to get on and off. Let me move him up. I will say on this figure, his shoulders are a lot more stiff than on the original. Well, I'll show a side-by-side comparison in a moment, once we get to sculpt and paint. So let me take that off. And there's the, I guess, what would they call that? A holster. That would make sense. It's very nicely sculpted. It's got like little leather details to it. It's got the stitching in the side. Let me get some focus up in here. Come on. Focus. And there we are. Yeah, you can see all that stitching. It's made out of a rubbery material, I suppose, rubber. And what's weird is, I think this is a separate type of piece. It feels like a different material than the strap itself. It just seems odd, even though it looks like it's part of the same thing. It just seems to not be. It's painted very well. It's got the buckle on point there. It's got a little bit of shadowing. There's even a little gold buckle there. It just looks really nice. And then that works perfectly for his shotgun that's held in there. Let's send that in. It holds perfectly fine. Then it's a little hard to peg in. It's got that giant piece of plastic there. And it's supposed to peg into there. Let me take the shotgun out. We'll take a look at that. It's got a ton of little details on it, like little rivets up top here. It's a beautiful pump action. It's got this tape on the back. I'm pretty sure that everything here is it's, I would say, screen accurate. I don't think there's anything that's off. But to be fair, the movie is very dark, so it's hard to catch details. Alright, so the shotgun fits in his hands. Let me do that. And it's a very cool accessory, even though everyone thinks of Hicks as carrying the shotgun all the time. He only really had it in that beginning fight scene with the aliens. Then from that point on, it's just his rifle, which I'm not sure what they call it. Did they call that an MP4K or something like that? I don't know. I'm probably going to make some diehard Aliens fan hate me and say, you're not a true fan, because I don't remember the name of a gun. It's MP41A or something. That's going to kill me. I'm going to look it up later and I'm going to be like, oh crap, I want to edit this video, but no. The show must go on. He holds it very nicely. It just looks natural. It's like this is the weapon he had when he stuck it in the alien's mouth and he's like, eat this! Which, when I was younger, that was awesome. Now that I'm older, I'm like, yeah, it's a little bit corny that he has to say something right before he kills something. But you know what? That's stuff that we don't get anymore. I'm sick of no longer having one-liners and awesome stuff like that. That was a straight-up action pick as well as a horror pick. But we don't get stuff like that anymore. Instead, we get, I don't know, what was that recent movie that bombed sci-fi? Can't even remember it now. Had that guy from Spider-Man in it, Amazing Spider-Man. And if you know what it is from that vague description, say it in the comments below. That would be very interesting if you know it from that. But yeah, that's what we get instead. So the shotgun's nice, it's painted well, it's got the gunmetal, and the black for the tape, and the brown. Of course, perfect with NECA. Now let's take a look at the rifle, which again fits in his hands perfectly because NECA really knows how to do articulation and sculpting of the hands so that they just work. It flows. I think I remember these figures were one of the first NECA figures to fully be articulated and perfectly done. Before them, it was pretty much just the top half of the figure was fairly well articulated, then the bottom half was just statuesque. And then these guys came out and they kind of changed the whole story. That's when I got into NECA. I saw these guys and I was just like, well, I don't collect 7-inch figures, but the hell am I going to pass this up? Honestly, before this, what we had was very sad. I just remember I had only the 90s Hicks figure here, and I was a bit disappointed because he looks nothing like the Hicks in the movie. Maybe a slight resemblance in the face somehow. But it just looks nothing like him. And then I got this guy, and it's just like miles of improvement. Okay, but back to the review. Here's the rifle. It's not as well painted as the original rifle. Let me see if I have an example around here. Oh yeah, here's the original rifle that they made. It's a little bit more subtle with the scrapings, whereas the silver on this just looks like it's meant to be painted that way. This looks more like it's worn out. Yeah. So yeah, the original one I think catches the paint better, but this new one is pretty much the same in every other way. The strap is a little bit more rubbery though, I will say that. Which they probably, I think with the figures that they put out that are like re-released, it's usually because there were some slight problems with the originals, and they figured that if they put out one that has all those improved, the people who already have these figures will be like, shoot, they'll toss those aside and then they'll get the new ones. They always love to do that, just slightly improve the figure so that people they upgrade to it. So the rifle is held well, it looks nice, paint is just there, the details there, honestly no complaints. And that's not even the end of his accessories. Let's set that aside for a second. Actually, I guess don't really have to set that aside. Let's leave that in his hand, because what else is he going to do? Let's pop off his head, because that's the next accessory. And we get the head that came in the 2-pack with Hicks and a damaged alien. Which I didn't want to get that one because he just looked like this. I feel like for 1 or 2 displays that's usable, but for the most part, it's not worth the extra $40 for him and a damaged alien. The damaged alien, again, only works with like 1 or 2 shots, because if you're just going to take pictures, it works, but if you do stop motions and play around with them, it just looks off. Like this is a one idea thing. If he's not screaming in a scene or something, it's not going to work. You need a relaxed head. And having both options here, I'm pretty glad that I didn't get the 2-pack, because I feel like I got it plus some. And I will mention a big difference they've been doing lately is instead of painting the entire faces, they've just been making the face the same sculpt color. So see, like this is the plastic that it's sculpted with, and then they add the details over that, like a wash for like the beard and stuff. Whereas, let me grab a figure. Where's that figure at? There it is. Like the original Hicks that came out, you can see he's got a painted face that looks like that. And that's a problem because once you drop him and stuff, he starts chipping at the nose or on the chin, and it just starts causing problems. But with these, it turns out a lot better. So there's the head sculpt for the alternate, and I like the look of it. I wish that they had this helmet for this head as well, but other than that, no real complaints. It looks solid. It's got the Hicks mark back there, so you know whose helmet it is. It's got a little camera, which a lot of people think that this is the camera and this is the flashlight. But if you go back to the movie at any point, you can see this is the camera. Even when Drake smashes his head up against the wall to get the camera fixing, that's supposed to be cluing you in that this is the camera, not this. But everyone's like, so here's the camera. Slight thing that bothers me, you know. And I'm talking about things that bother me. I can't remember the name of the rifle, but whatever. And yeah, I don't think that this looks like Michael Biehn. That's the actor who plays Hicks. I will say that this head just doesn't quite capture the look for me. But as a basic screaming sculpt for a Marine, it's okay. If you want to have a background character, you can work this. That's why I've got this extra Hicks body here. And if you just pop it onto there, then you can just make it into another Marine if you want. I mean, you'd have to paint up the armor differently and stuff, so I'm not sure what I'm going to do with this. I just like having a ton of Hicks figures because he's my favorite character, my favorite actor, and my favorite movie. That's right. Michael Biehn is my favorite actor. What an obscure one, huh? He's died more times in movies than Sean Bean. Similar name, too. A lot of people point that out, but I haven't yet, so there we are. Alright, so now let's talk about the sculpt and paint of the figure itself, which, in my opinion, is pretty much phenomenal. I will say the face paint, my one slight gripe is the way the 5 o'clock shadow is done. It's like uneven on each side. So this side should be up a little bit more, I feel. Whereas this side's already up there. So I don't know, I'll have to customize it a bit to get that even. But other than that, it does look a lot like Michael Biehn. It's got his basic features, and it even has his weird teeth that he always has his mouth a slight bit open with those teeth out. Normally, I'd complain about that with an actor, but with him, it's his thing. It's a defining characteristic. I like his hair, the beautiful sculpt on there. Look at that. It's like legit hair. Looks like human hair on a toy. Then there's his face. You can see his eyes look pretty even. No complaints with that. I feel like they even got the brown with the black pupils there, I think. His teeth are all evenly done. No complaints on the head sculpt. 10 out of 10. Then as you can see down the body, the armor's all sculpted up. It's a separate piece that's made out of rubber. And underneath that, they even bothered sculpting the entire shirt that's underneath this, even though they could have skipped over that very easily. If you want, you could at any time take off the armor and just have Hicks in his regular, I guess, BDUs without the armor. And then he's got his wonderful paint up of his heart there, which, fun fact, all the other characters or actors in the movie, they got to design their own armor, like, you know, little things that they put on it, like Hudson chose to put his name of his girlfriend on there, well, Bill Paxton, Luis, and then have his skull there with the glory sign. But Michael Biehn got signed up to the game late on. They were actually going to have James Remar play Hicks, but he and James Cameron didn't get along, so Michael Biehn was pulled in. And by that point, James Remar already designed this. So, James Remar has left his mark on alien history, so that's pretty interesting. And if you don't know who James Remar is, he's the father in Dexter. And if you don't know that, then get out of my house. And it's very well painted. Michael Biehn had a problem with that, by the way. He always thought that looked like a target, because it's a big red thing on this green armor. That's enough fun facts, so let's get back to the review. It says Hicks up there. It's all painted well. You can see the little, I guess those are flares there, I think that's supposed to be. Because if I remember correctly, Ripley's taking those out of pouches and like lighting them up and dropping them. Then there's the knife there. He's got his torch there. Then this piece, I'm not sure what that's supposed to be. I think that's supposed to be a flamethrower attachment. Then he's got all these pouches in the back. The problem I have here is this belt is not tight enough. It doesn't stay up there. It's always sagging down, which causes a bit of a problem. I want to kind of glue it up, but at the same time I'm not sure how that would look. I don't know. I might do that, might not. And then this piece down here, I might as well add, is an accessory itself. You can pull it off. It's a little bit troublesome. In fact, let me see. I think I have one that's already off, so I can use an example. Here we are. Here's that little torch piece, which they do use a lot in the movie, so I'm glad we get one of these. And they're supposed to come off there and on, but it's being held on by a tiny piece of rubber. I don't want to break that off. So that you can stick that in his either hand, really, so you can have him sealing up doors and stuff. I think this hand, he holds it slightly better, though. Let me see. It just looks a little more natural in this hand without the trigger finger. So yeah, there's that. And it's nicely sculpted, and the paint's just basically what you'd need. Then the sculpt on the pants, perfect. It's got all the wrinkles. It's got all the nicks and stuff on his leg armor. Shin armor, I guess. It's got all the latches. And then the boots are beautiful, which I bet you can see something the NECA doesn't do anymore. Or doesn't really do. Alright, so the sculpt and paint and accessories are spot on. We'll talk about the articulation, which is something that really bought me into the entire NECA thing, because I saw these figures and I was like, well, you know, they look nice, but how well are they articulated? Then you take a look at every point of articulation and there's like, well, what can I complain about? There's nothing. Alright, sorry about that. Camera just cut off. Okay, so now we're going to talk about articulation. Starting with the head, he does a full 360 spin. He can look up quite a bit. He can look down quite a bit as well. And then his head pops off kind of easily because of the head swap thing. You can just jam that back on there. And then he does the head pivot movement, which is pretty nice. You can get some gestures out of that, like, the hell? And then with the shoulder, it's stiff, like I said. But you can go full 360 up. It's a bit inhibited by the armor. And then it goes outward to almost a right angle to his body. And then at the bicep, he does a swivel, full 360, and then at the elbow, you move out and then into a 90-degree angle. Then at the wrist, full 360 spin, and he has the in and out movement. The other arm is exactly the same, except for with this wrist, it's a little bit tighter with that hinge. Alright, and then he has two articulation points at the hips. Well, at the hips and around mid-torso. So you can move forward a bit, move back, side to side, and swivel like that. Then at the hips down here, at crotch level, he can do almost a split. You can bring that back in, kick forward that much, kick back that much. And then at the, there's also a swivel there. So that's an extra piece of articulation. Then he has a double jointed knee, which is very nice and very rare on NECA figures. Actually, I think it's rare. Let me take a look at other. Yeah, that's a rare thing. Like here's Ash, single jointed knee. Even though Ash has a double jointed elbow, that's just so weird. They've been playing around with articulation for a while. Alright, so double jointed knee leads to the ankle, which has a swivel side to side, and you move forward and back, and it kind of has pivot. So let's do the old. There he is using the full extent of his ankle pivot with his feet still flat on the floor. Alright. And then he has toe articulation, which is nearly a thing of the past. It seems like it's just a Toy Biz thing, but every now and then we get a figure that has toe articulation. It's just so weird. And that works pretty well if you want to do some sort of a dynamic standing pose with the foot lifting up. But normally you won't really need that. It might help with balancing him out sometimes too, though. It's just cool to have that extra articulation. So, honestly, I think this figure is amazing. I have no complaints. I would recommend him highly. I think the 2-pack starts at about $40, which if you think about it, that's about the price of $20 per figure, which is the NECA usual. And sometimes it's a little more expensive than that. I think now they're moving to like $22. It used to be $15 back in the day. It's just, things are changing up, prices are changing, it's getting scary. But yeah, I would definitely recommend this guy, and then we'll take a look at the Hudson later, and I'll tell you what I think about him. So, make sure to like, comment, share, and subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next review. Peace.